Hello, my name is Bart Rickard, Manager of Customer Enablement. In this video, we're going to go through the basic steps of preparing for an event. We're not going to go through the setup and completion of a full event, but we're just going to go through the event preparation steps, which you'll see on the left of your screen. The first step to event preparation is creating your event. This is a very easy step. Simply go to your customer center, which we are right now, and you'll see an option to create an event or league. Name your event. Establish whether it's an event or a league. In this case, we're going to be creating the ladies closing day event, and place it in one of the categories if you have categories created, which we always suggest. After clicking Get Started, the event's created and will direct you right to the event wizard. And this wizard will help you hold your hand through the basic steps of setting up an event if you are a new user. For the case of this example and this demo, we are going to skip the wizard and go right to the manager site for this specific event. And here we are at the manager site for this event. And on the left, you'll see the basic steps we're going to go over on setting up this event. They don't particularly have to be done in the order on the left. However, we do suggest using that order. The next step after creating an event we're going to go over is editing your event settings. And your event settings are in your event profile. So let's go to Event menu, Event Profile. As you see, there are 5 tabs in your event profile: General Settings, Handicap Settings, Rounds and Scheduling, Tournaments and Scoring, and Directories. And these settings were cloned over from your default settings in your customer center. So in many cases, there may be nothing that needs to be done here, and you may simply just need to review and make sure these settings are exactly what you want for this event. As you see, we'll start with the General Settings tab, where you could change the name of the original name of the event. You could change the event GGID, which some players may use to log in with the mobile app or into the portal. You can select whether or not you're using divisions, flights, or teams. Oftentimes, you may try to go create divisions. You may not see the option. That may be because the option is not selected here. So make sure the option is selected. You can change the handle format, and you can change whether or not you want this to be in the public directory on golfgenius.com. So many different options here under General Settings. Scrolling up to the top, we can go to the next tab, Handicap Settings. Are we using 18-hole indexes or 9-hole indexes? Are we going to be allowing posting scores of GIN or not from this event? Are we going to be using Rule 3-5 for multiple tees? That's always a very popular option that sometimes is turned on or off. And other handicapping options. Rounds and scheduling. Is every player in the event going to be attending every single round? For events, most of the time that's the case. They're going to be playing, and every player in that event is going to be playing every single round. Are we playing in 4-somes, 5-somes, and other schedule options down below. Tournaments and scoring. What's the default tie-breaking method? What are the points and purse breakdown options? Are we entering scores hole by hole, 9-hole totals? Again, many different scoring options here. You just want to make sure all looks okay. If you're using directories for your club website or in other areas, you can select what directory this specific event goes into. So maybe I want to throw it into the ladies events directory. So if you do use directories, this is a very important tab to make sure you select that to put that event in the directories. And again, if you have any questions about the event profile, about a specific option, you could always search our knowledge base by searching event profile. Now let's move on to our next step, and that would be editing our event portal. If you do not use the portal for your events, and you won't be showing any type of event website to your players or spectators, and obviously this step can be skipped. If you are using a portal, we need to just go and just make sure everything looks okay and add any other information that needs to be added. If I go to the Apps menu and I click on the member portal address, that will bring me right to the portal for this event. Now, similar to the event settings or event profile, what we do is we clone the default portal from your customer center that you've hopefully created to this specific event. So again, there may not be anything that needs to be done. The results may be where you want them, the tee sheet may be positioned where you want, and everything may be set. However, if there is something that needs to be added, changed, or removed, we can do it here. For instance, maybe we want to go under the photo stream tab and delete any type of photo pages. Under the Analytics tab, maybe we want to add a new page. And there's many portal pages available to you here. So if we go down to Analytics, you'll see there's some most improved player report, course analytics. For this specific one-time event, maybe we will do course analytics to see the course stats after the round is complete. You can also make changes to other settings by going to Home, General Portal Settings. And you could change the color scheme up top. You could add a scrolling message up top. You can go down and reorder the sections at the top. So there's many different options and changes and edits you can make after creating an event portal. Now let's move on to our next step, which is a very critical step to setting up an event, and that is adding your players. So let's return to the manager site and go to the golfers menu. There's various different methods to adding players to your event roster. As you'll see below, I'll go over a few of the more popular options, which would be importing golfers from your master roster or from GIN. You could manually add players by typing in their information. You can also upload a roster from Spreadsheet. One option for our TM Club Tournament Management Premium customers is open registration, where players will register and the roster will populate itself. So let's first go over importing golfers from the master roster. And you're basically allowed to just simply pluck certain players from your master roster. You can search all of GIN. So if you have a member guest, you can search for guests from other GIN clubs by searching the GIN database and pulling in their information into the system. You can quickly search your master roster to add players and simply click Add Player. If you have a player that a member who's bringing a guest that doesn't know the guest name yet, you could add just a TBD. So we'll hold the slot for them, and they'll just be called TBD for now. And you could go in and change your name at a later date. If this is an event that uses a team list, you can go over and build your teams as you're adding players. For instance, you could add 4 players, click Create Team. Add 4 more players, create team. And remember, in some cases, you may not even need to create teams. You can just use the pairings and use pair versus field, foursome versus field, and whatnot. To learn more about whether or not you have to actually create the teams, you can click on this link here. Another option in adding players is adding them from previous events and leagues in your account. So if you have an event, for instance, a Ryder Cup from last year, and all the players from last year are playing in it again, you can simply go and import all those players from the previous event into this event. So there's many different ways to simply import players and their information from here to there. So let's select some players from the master roster. Here's our master roster. As you can see, we're creating a ladies event. So I'm going to add some ladies to this event. I'm going to click import. And all the players that are being imported will be listed down below. As you'll see, we have all their information imported as well. I accidentally added myself. Obviously, I'm not playing, so I'm going to go in and I'm going to delete myself from the event. Now let's go back and look at the next option. The next option is to manually add players to the roster. This is a very simple way to add players. If you do have players who are not on the master roster or from other events, or you don't want to search all of GIN, you can simply just come here and type in their information and type in their email address and their handicap index or their GIN number if they have a GIN number. And if any custom fields are created in the event, you can go in and create the custom fields. Save the roster, and I'm going to add Sue Rickard to the event roster. Now let's quickly go over one last option in adding players to an event, and that is uploading players from Spreadsheet. Let's pretend for a second that we're not creating an event for the ladies' closing day, but we're creating an event for an upcoming outing. These outing players are not from our master roster. Many of them are not from GIN, and the outing director just wants to give you a spreadsheet full of players. Well, in that case, uploading those players via Spreadsheet is the ideal method. So simply go to Golfers, upload roster from Spreadsheet, and you can choose your file and choose your spreadsheet. Now let's take a quick look at an example spreadsheet here. What we have is players are separated, a player on each row, and you have different columns. So we have a first name column, last name column, handicap index, and team. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to call this first name and last name, and I'm going to save it. So let's upload that spreadsheet. Let's go to Choose File, and I'm going to click on outing roster. We'll see that our system matched a lot of the current attributes. We know that first name column means first name, last name column means last name, and team means team ID. There may be cases where, as you see here, our system's not currently positive that the H period I period column means handicap index. So what I have to do is click on handicap index there on the left and click on index here, and I got to match those attributes. Now, all that information in that spreadsheet is matched up. I'm going to click on Import Spreadsheet, and the spreadsheet of players will be imported. Now, let's go back to the example of setting up that ladies' closing day. And let's talk about our next step in event preparation, which is adding the rounds or round. So if I go to the calendar menu, click on Add Rounds, this is where I can go to add my 1 or 2 or 3 or how many rounds I have in this specific event. You'll see in calendar view all the dates, and in this case we're only going to create one round on the 16th. So a round of golf would be 9 or 18 holes. If you have a 2-day 36-hole tournament, then you'll create 2 rounds. If you have the 5 9-hole matches, then you'll create 5 separate rounds. And if you have multiple rounds within a day, you just click on the date twice and it'll give you the option to remove the current round or just add another round. But again, in this case, December 16th, we're going to add a single round. After the round is created, we can go on to our next step, and that is to create teams. Now, I said earlier in the video, if you have a team-based event, you may or may not have to create teams. If you have a team-based event where the teams are actually playing together as a foursome, so maybe you have 4-person teams playing a 4-person scramble, in that case, you don't have to create the teams. You can skip this step. If you have 2-person teams and the players are organized by the first 2 players in the pairing on a team and the second 2 players in that pairing group are a team as well, again, there's no need to create teams. Because when we create the tournament 2 steps later in this video, you'll see that we'll be simply selecting pair versus field or foursome for field. And that will make more sense to you as we get to the tournament setup area. Now, there are cases where you do have to create teams. Maybe the teams are not organized by pairings, and they're everywhere throughout the pairings. For instance, maybe a Ryder Cup. Other cases when teams may need to be created would be when you have multiple rounds in your event. So let's assume that you do have to create teams. So what we'll do is we'll go to the Golfers tab, and we'll click on Event Divisions Flights Teams. We'll scroll down, click on Manage Team List, and you'll see some options. Let's call this Ladies Closing Day Teams, and we'll say team size of 2. So the teams are a size of 2. And if we click on creating teams manually, simply you will just click on the 2 players, click create team, then click on the next 2 players, create team, and whatnot. Now, if you have a custom field created, maybe with using open registration as a TM Club Premium customer, or if you are uploading a spreadsheet full of players with a custom field or a column that identifies what team they're on, you could use that to automatically create the teams. You could do it by entry number as well. So the first 2 or 4 players you enter will be on a team, and the next 2 or 4 players will be on a team. You can automatically create teams by using current pairings, or you can copy a team list from another division. And then below you have your team name format. The team name shows up on the leaderboard, show up in other reports as well. So it's important to identify how you would like these team names to be created. So let's assume we're going to create teams with a team size of 2. And again, this is only a 1-round event, and it really would not be needed to create teams, but for the sake of example, we're going to create 2-person teams. And we're going to do it manually. So if I click Next, I can now create these teams manually one at a time. And to do that, simply click on 2 players, click Save, and that team will be created. And just simply repeat that process until all of your teams have been created for your event. Once your teams are created, you could always go back to the team list and change the teams, add new teams, and delete teams by simply going back to Event Divisions Flight Teams, Manage Team Lists. Now let's get back to setting up this ladies closing day event. And the next step in accomplishing that is to create pairings for that single round event. And to do that, you go to Rounds menu, Create New Pairings. On this page, you're going to see a few options on how you'd like your pairings created. The first we'll go over is the automatic scheduling. The automatic scheduling is basically we will create the pairings for you, whether it be randomly by A, B, C, D, by AB. If you have team lists created, you could pair by the team list by team pair, team foursome. You could organize the pairings by index, so the players with the 4 lowest handicap indexes will be together in the next 4 if you're playing in pair groups of 4. Keep together rules spread apart, so you may want to make sure to keep them. You may have a pairing request that Anne wants to play with Courtney. Simply click on keep together. And that's essentially how the automatic scheduler works. Going back up, pair by previous results or pairings. This is for multi-round events where you want to create pairings, maybe leaders off first or last, more in competitive multi-round events. Create pairings using entry numbers. So maybe you've entered players in the order of 4. So the first 4 players that you've entered in the event will be in the foursome. The next 4 players will be in the foursome, and so on. Manual pairings is where you can simply just go and click on I want these 4 players to play together. And I click on create pairing. And I say I want these 4 players together. And I click on create pairing. And you simply repeat that step until you have all your foursomes, threesomes, whatever pairing group sizes you have together. And the final step is creating pairings using a custom field. If you have a custom field that identifies what foursome or threesome or what pairing group they're in, for instance, maybe you had a column in the spreadsheet that identified what pairing group they're in, or they used open registration for TM Club Premium customers, and the team ID will be used to create the pairings. For this case, we're going to use the automatic scheduling option, and we are going to pair by ABCD. So once you click on Next, and you click on Continue, the pairings will be created using the parameters you've selected. After the pairings have been generated, you will be directed to the Edit Pairings page. And there's some very important steps to be taken here. For one case, you will have to set the course and tee. We need to know the course and tee that the players are playing from. So let's say they will be all playing from the East Course blue tees. I can select all players up here, and I click Go. Now maybe there's a case where multiple tees are used. For instance, maybe Barbara is going to play the blue tees. Simply click on her at the top, and I can click on blue course, go down, click Go, and she's now playing from the blue tees. Other steps you could take is you could swap players real easily. So if there's any changes after the original pairings are created, you can simply click 1 or 2 players, they'll swap. You can swap pairs. You can swap foursomes or pairing groups. You could add new rows if you want to add a new pairing group. You can remove players, add blinds. And again, you can set tee times. You can set shotgun starts. So what we'll do here is we'll set a 9 a.m. shotgun start. And we will split the groups up a little bit, so we will alternate an empty hole between each group. And then we will click Go. Once everything is all set, click Save Pairings. The final step we're going to talk about in event preparation is creating tournaments. And we've only created a 1-round event. So we are going to the rounds menu to create a single round tournament. To do that, go to Rounds, Tournaments. And you'll see some options here. Add new tournament, add linked tournament, add user score tournament. And first I'll work from the bottom up. User score tournaments are closest to the pins, longest drives are the most common examples. Any examples where the user has to tell us who won that competition. A linked tournament would be in cases where you are linking 2 single round tournaments together to get a total score. And to learn more about these linked tournaments, simply go to our knowledge base and search linked tournaments. And to add a new tournament is where in most common cases where you're going to set a single round tournament format competition. So simply, what type of competition games are we playing in this specific round? And you could add 1 or more tournaments. So what we're going to do is we're going to click on Add New Tournament. And we're going to name the tournament. So what I'll say is Best Ball of 4. Format, you have match play, stroke play, stable for quota, many different skins games, birdies games. We're going to set up a best ball foursome net. So what I'll say is stroke play. Competition, we are going to create a team-based event using the foursomes. So foursome versus field. So every foursome is playing against the rest of the foursomes in the field. And in that case, we're taking the best ball in each hole. Now you say, I want to have the best ball on par 3s, the best 2 balls on par 4s, the best 3 balls on par 5, and whatnot. Many other different options. Again, we encourage you to search our knowledge base for all the tournament setup options. Is this a 9-hole tournament? Is this a front 9 tournament? If you scroll down here, you can see the handicapping options. You play gross, you can use Callaway or Peoria or USJ Net off the lowest. In this case, we're using 90% of their handicap index. You can select the tie-breaking methods. USJ 9631 is which we'll use in that case. And then if there's any person points, you can enter the person points here as well. In this case, we're not going to. And there's some advanced handicapping options for if you're using decimal course handicaps or using max or minimum course handicap indexes. That's all can be selected here. When I click save, the tournament is then selected. Now again, you could create multiple tournaments within that round. So I may click on add new tournament and I could add a skins game, I could add an individual Stableford game or any other game or tournament I'd like. And that concludes the presentation in the event setup process. Good luck with your events.